Sorry, I just have one question. When we are looking for this billing project, would it be, on the console where there's an option, a drop-down menu for billing projects? Should this T101 be coming up there?
So you'll be able to see the billing project that you've been added to in both the left-hand menu when you're anywhere in the app on the landing page. And you'll also be able to see it when you are cloning a workspace. So there'll be a drop-down menu that says what billing project would you like to use to clone this workspace.
I see. I'm at the main workspaces page.
So, we should just get started because all of this will become
great. Okay.
In the next hour or so, in the first half of this presentation. So
and I'm going to be just adding people because I got about 20, 30 people more to add. So I'll just be adding while you're going through. Okay. So if I don't send you a message that says that you're not registered for account, assume that you'll be on the billing account by the time you need to be.
Thank you, Allie. Okay, so welcome to the intro to Terra workshop. All of today's slides are available at this Broad.io public-facing folder. So you can go ahead and type in broad.io/2301_T101 into your browser. And from then on, you don't have to type in any more URLs because you can open all of these slides in your own computer, and all of these links are clickable. If you haven't already, you should sign up for Terra by going to app.terra.bio. As I said, you can just click on the top left button, and near the top, you'll see an option to sign in. And if you've never signed in before, then it's a couple of extra clicks to register. And you can be set up with our free billing project by following the pre-workshop instructions, or by just going ahead and sending a direct message to Allie. And we will ask at the end of this workshop for everyone to fill out a survey about how you enjoyed both the workshop and how likely you are to use the Terra platform. These surveys are super important to us. They help us to determine what exactly we should be teaching people about Terra, and they can even help us determine what directions to take the entire platform in. So with that, let me start by doing a quick little icebreaker. Before we talk about what Terra is, I want to ask the audience, on a scale of 1 to 3, how comfortable are you with cloud data? So 1 being, I've never used cloud data, I vaguely understand it, and 3 being, I use cloud data fairly regularly. And just go ahead and type in your answer in the chat. I see the answers flowing in. See a pretty typically healthy mix, kind of leaning more towards the 2s and 3s. So that's,
what was the scale again? I'm sorry.
one is I have never used cloud data, and I'm vaguely familiar with the concept, and 3 is I use cloud data all the time, or at least regularly.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, everyone, for answering. And then I want to ask one other question. What data types are the attendees of this workshop most interested in analyzing or visualizing? Great. Lots of whole genome, GWAS, transcriptomics. I saw an I don't know in there somewhere. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So that's really great. And I think that this is going to be exactly the presentation that everyone here is hoping to see. So let me just go through a couple of small logistical basics. First of all, to ask a question, turn your mic on and just go ahead and ask. If you would prefer, you can always send a message in the Zoom chat. You can either send it publicly to everyone, or if you prefer, you can send it privately to one of the TAs. All of the TAs should have the word or the letters TA in their name tag. Otherwise, please keep your mics muted. Also, remember to raise your hand whenever you are done with a task. So like if I say everyone should go ahead and clone their workspace, or everyone should go ahead and launch their notebook, then it would be very helpful to see that most people have, completed this task. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. What is Terra? Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the background, the lay of the land, how we got here. If you're trying to unlock the mysteries of human genetics today, there's a lot of data to work with, as everyone here indicated with their answers. Vast amounts of genomic data, as well as phenotypic data and medical records. Governments and other institutions have invested millions of dollars in generating data sets. Examples include 1,000 Genomes, which has 3,000 participants, UK Biobank with 500,000 participants, and all of us with, an enormous growing number of participants, and over a million at this point. And computing advances also mean that it's possible to turn this data into meaningful insights that can improve people's lives. While this is wonderful in theory, there's so much data that it's hard to do a variety of the crucial things that have to be done, like finding the data you want, downloading and storing the data so that you can analyze it in an efficient way, interpreting and analyzing different file formats. There are a lot of file formats, which also we could see from everybody's answers in the chat. Some can be very confusing, especially if you're combining data from large data sets that might use advanced compression. And of course, at the end of all of this analysis, or sometimes in the middle of all of this analysis, we have to be able to share with our collaborators in a way that's efficient and secure. And the analysis itself comes with its own challenges. It requires large, expensive infrastructure investments for many people. To handle the times when you need lots of processing power, even though most of the time you don't necessarily need lots of processing power. So people who can't afford to have a big infrastructure can be locked out. And that's why we are working on this cloud platform in order to help people not be locked out in this way. Similarly, with analysis tools and computing environments, there's a lot of complexity, and they're often custom built. So it's hard to find the exact right tools, especially when you're working collaboratively, because now you're, experiencing lots of issues with version control, where you need to make sure that the tools that you're using are exactly the right tools for the data that you've selected. They're also the same tools that your collaborators are expecting you to use, because everyone has to be on the same page. So all of these complex custom analysis tools and environments lead to potentially non-reproducible results, which makes it much harder to build on existing studies. So we like to start by explaining the difference between the traditional approach and the cloud-based approach that Terra is built for. So first, if we consider the traditional approach, we have to imagine that everybody in the world is coming to get their data and to, take it to their own computers. And this, has lots of issues with it. So traditional bioinformatics looks like this: a central repository holds the data. Each researcher copies it to local storage to analyze with their own analysis tools in their own custom computing environment. The negatives are many. There's lots of data copying. It's not really data sharing. So actually, all that data exists in duplicate in many locations. So that leads to very high data storage costs. It also leads to non-reproducible results because every analysis is done in an isolated environment using these custom tools. And of course, as I mentioned, it leads to huge infrastructure costs, expensive fixed compute resources that aren't affordable to everybody at every institution. And of course, there are lots of security implications because every individual has to have their own security implementations that have to be compliant with, whatever regulations there are. And so in the end, everyone's security is only as good as the weakest security anywhere. So all of these things get in the way of being able to actually use the data that's coming out nowadays. In the cloud-based model, data rests in a central repository in the cloud where researchers access and analyze together in a virtual environment. With this new vision, you get cloud-based data storage, which is actual true immediate data sharing. You only pay for single storage. So you only pay for whatever is the storage instance that you need access to. You get shareable tools and containers that make your results and your analyses much more reproducible. And you get cost-effective and elastic compute resources. You're not paying for compute power when you're not using it. You're not paying for a giant computational infrastructure to just sit there for the months in between when you're not using it. You're building virtual machines that scale to meet to your needs. Not having to make those big infrastructure investments to do research makes it more equitable as well. And of course, there's centralized data security. So now a platform like Terra is going to take care of all of those security regulations for you. So you're never going to have to make sure that your local system is also in line with whatever regulations the data that you've downloaded require, because everything is done right on Terra. So maybe you're thinking, that sounds great, but moving to the cloud takes a lot of time and technical expertise. All these tasks can seem pretty daunting. You have to find and access data that's already in the cloud. You have to do a bunch of administrative work, right? You have to set up and pay for cloud storage and make sure that you've authorized the right people to use the right billing accounts. You have to set up the right virtual compute resources. You have to find and set up all of the analysis tools that you need. You need to figure out how to share and collaborate with whoever it is that you want to, whether it's on the clinical side or on the research side. And of course, again, security. You need to make sure that all of the security is fully in place so that you're not in violation of any regulation. Well, this is where Terra comes in. So Terra is developed by the Broad Institute in collaboration with Microsoft and Verily. And Terra is a web interface designed to do all of the heavy lifting that I just described and help you move your analysis to the cloud. So here are some of the foundational design principles for Terra. Number one, it's open and it's developed under an open source license that enables extensibility and reuse with users able to add custom proprietary modules as needed. And so you can add your own modules, and those can be either shared publicly or you can have those protected under authorization domains. There's a standards-based consistent with standards developed by coalitions such as the Global Alliance for Genomics and Health, the GA4GH. It's also modular, which is to say it's composed of functional components with well-specified interfaces. So there are a lot of different components to Terra that are meant to work with each other. So you can send data from one place to another. You can select data in public repositories and send it to your workspace. You can select tools from public repositories and upload them to your workspace. So you can basically create exactly the solution that you will need. And Terra's combination of features empowers you to work as effectively as possible in the cloud. So that includes finding data, because we have libraries, including both public and restricted access data sets, which you can link your access restricted accounts like NIH accounts. If you have access to certain access restricted data sets, we have that all wired up so that you can log in such a way through Terra where you can bring in data from those data sets into your workspace. There are all sorts of workspace access controls in order for data to be able to be shared in a secure and immediate fashion. And we have two different analyses modes. We have workflows, which are, they're basically ways to run very scalable computations. And we have interactive analysis, which is a way of then taking your downstream results and visualizing them and doing all sorts of things. And we'll demonstrate both workflows and interactive analyses during this workshop. Today, we're actually going to start with interactive analyses, and tomorrow we'll show you some simple workflows. So all of this is made possible in addition to all of the wonderful design work that we do here at the Broad. It's also made possible by the fact that Terra is part of this large ecosystem of data. It's an open ecosystem, not an island. You can find and access data, but also bring your own. You can access tools and bring your own. You can perform analyses and share them securely. And like I said, it's modular and standards-based and has many open source components. So that means you have flexibility to do many, many things. And that includes building for multi-cloud capabilities. We've actually just what we'll be demonstrating in this workshop will be based on the Google Cloud Platform, but we've also recently launched Terra on Azure, which is very exciting. So you all get to be on the ground floor in that respect. And finally, to end with security, it's important to note that Terra is built to work with highly sensitive data. Centralized security means all of the components in the ecosystem exist within a FISMA moderate environment. This satisfies the security requirements for many controlled access data sets. Terra is also FedRAMP authorized as a moderate impact system with agency authorization. And you can find Terra listed in the FedRAMP marketplace. I should mention here that whenever you log in to certain one of those data sets, there are 15-minute idle timeouts for clinical researchers if you step away from your machines. There are other types of timeouts, so there are a lot of security measures that make all of this possible. So sometimes you may have to re-log in to or re-authenticate when you're using controlled access data sets. But all of this is done fairly seamlessly. So with that, I'm going to pause very briefly for some questions, then we'll move on to a platform tour. I want to say that you can find lots of great self-onboarding materials by going to either one of these URLs. And again, you can find these slides in the broad.io folder that we've posted in the chat and is also available at the beginning of this slide deck. So if one of the TAs could just one last time put that URL in the chat for everyone's benefit so that we are 100% sure that everyone has it. So just very briefly, before I move on to the Terra platform tour, is there anything anyone would like to ask?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for this powerful intro. I would like to know, is there any analysis you can do on Terra free?
For free?
For free.
To do any sort of actual analysis? No, technically no. Although you can do it for the next week for free because you'll be on our free Terra billing project. So,
okay, again, can you hear me?
Yes.
For people that, okay, let me say people from our region below any country like us, is there anywhere, anyhow, we can be linked or helped to use such platform for analysis without incurring much cost?
I think there may be something that we can do to work with specific consortia. You should send a message to us asynchronously. I would send a message to support. I'm sorry. Actually, I'll show you exactly where to send a message. You can send a message right here to contact us with any type of questions like that. Is that helpful?
Sorry, there was a hitch in my network. I couldn't get the last point you made. I couldn't get you.
I'm sorry?
I couldn't get, I think there was a trouble with my network. I couldn't hear you well.
Oh, I was saying that you should submit any questions like that via this support link. So you can click contact us right here. And so my screen, everyone can see app.terra.bio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. I apologize. I've been a little bit sick the last, I don't know how long.
Anton, I just have a question for you. I am like starting at ground zero.
Yes.
As you know, I've been working on the DDP side, so all of Terra and all of this is very new to me. And so I just had a question on, you had a slide that talked about data sets, like collaborating, and then workflows and interactive analysis. Is that somewhat linear in that like workflows are done on kind of broad, and then the interactive analysis is coming in to visualize pieces of that? Is that right?
I think that's one way to look at it. I mean, you can, depending on the type of research you do, maybe you want to visualize everything in aggregate. But yes, the interactive analysis, the visualization is what happens downstream. So you have a bunch of data, you brought it in either on your own or from some sort of public or access controlled data set. you run some workflows against it, and then you do something like opening a notebook, which is what we're going to do today.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we're just a tiny bit behind on time, so I'm going to try and go fairly quickly through this platform tour. So first of all, here we are on app.terra.bio. This is the landing page. This button up here in the top left calls up the main menu. So when you click over here, it'll either say log in which case you should log in, or it'll say your name. Once you click on your name, you can see your profile information. You can see what groups you're a part of. We won't be going into groups, but this is basically an added security feature. They're called authorization domains. You can also see what billing projects you have access to. So go ahead and check here if you have any. You should have at least the T101 Jan 2021 billing project shared with you. And it says 2021 because I made a mistake and wrote 2021 instead of 2023 when I created it just this month. So you can also have a quick access to all of your cloud environments. So we're not going to do that right now because nobody here has any cloud environments yet. When we launch our first cloud environment, I will come back here so that everyone can see that this is like a one-stop shop where you can see all of your cloud environments and associated storage. You can also click on workspaces to be taken to this page where you can basically search through all of the workspaces that are available to you. You'll see the fully inclusive list on this tab, My Workspaces. That includes both the workspaces that you personally have access to, either because someone shared them with you or because you created them, and also any public workspaces. So we have a variety of public workspaces. We have featured workspaces. We have what we call new and interesting workspaces, which are like extra super featured workspaces. So in addition to that, we have a library, which includes data sets. And I mentioned this before, so just going really quickly, I want to show you the fact that when you go to data sets, this is how you can explore publicly available data or certain types of access controlled data. So like when I click on that, it goes to a certain workspace with other data sets. It will go to different data portals. So we're not going to go too far down this rabbit hole. Some of these also have their own Terra-based data explorers where you can basically select a specific cohort, right? I can select this cohort and then I can save that cohort. And then if I click save, the next button will ask me what workspace I'd like to send it to. So that's how you can select data from public data sets. In addition to that, you can find lots of featured workspaces, which is what we're going to do in a moment. You can also find different tools. If you click under the library into code and workflows, we have our GATK best practice workflows right up front so that you can just click on them and import them into whatever workspace you want. Or you can find additional workspace or workflows by going either to DocStore, which we have integrated access with, or we also have our own Broad methods repository. We also have a wide variety of channels for support. We have quick start materials, we have support documentation, we have tutorials and videos on our YouTube channel. We have an option for requesting a feature. So like if you find that you're starting to work in Terra a lot and you realize that there is some sort of really repetitive thing that you have to do all the time that's actually really simple, but it's very time consuming and you wish that there was a one-click button for it, you can submit a request for that kind of feature. And we try to be pretty supportive. There's also a very responsive community forum. And we have a full-time frontline support staff that monitors the community forum. Excuse me. So please feel free to post on the community forum. And also feel free to just contact us directly. So you can send us a question and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can.
Hi, sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
So by asking a feature, what you mean is if we want a specific pipeline, like for analysis, can you also generate that pipeline for us?
That's not what this button refers to. If you want to develop a particular pipeline, it might be possible to work with our pipelines team, but then I would use this contact us button or
thanks.
post in the community forum, because it's quite possible that there's something similar to that in existence. So I hope that's helpful. Okay. So with that, we're actually going to go and explore a workspace. So first, I'm going to go into the featured workspace list. And at this point, I hope everybody is following along. So I'll give everybody a second to go to app.terra.bio and click on library and click on featured workspace. And so this is our featured workspace list. We have featured workspaces in a variety of different categories. We have workspaces for just beginners getting started, tutorials. We have workspaces based around different types of analyses tools like Whittle and Jupyter Notebooks, Hail and Bioconductor, GATK, of course. We have workspaces centered around experimental strategy, data generation, technology, scientific domain, different types of data sets, and basically anything you can imagine. So there's 66 featured workspaces currently. The one that we're going to explore is the COVID-19 workspace. So I'm going to type in COVID-19 into the search bar, and I'm going to click on this one that comes up at the very top. So the first thing that I want to go over, what you see right up here in the green banner. So you can see the name of the workspace here. It says COVID-19. This is a public featured workspace. So none of us can do anything inside of it. We can't launch any computation. And so you actually didn't even need a billing project in order to be able to look at this. And that is one thing that I will mention about Terra. There are a lot of things that you can see without having to pay a dime. You don't need to be on a billing project in order to look inside of any publicly facing workspace. You just can't do anything like edit any of the fields. You can't launch the cloud environments. You can't launch workflows. You basically can't do any storage or computation. So this is the name of the workspace up here, COVID-19. And this over here, pathogen-genomic-surveillance, is actually the billing project on which this publicly facing workspace lives. When we create our own workspace, you will see that the name of the workspace changes to whatever it is that you name it, and that the billing project changes to the billing project that you're on. With that, I'm going to give you a short tour around the workspace itself. So here we are in a workspace. And a workspace, if you're not familiar yet with the concept of a Terra workspace, is basically a digital laboratory that is fully modular and that you can share with as many people as you like. And you can upload data here, and you can launch applications from here. And you also have access to your Google bucket. So I'm going to start by describing the dashboard. So here we are on the dashboard. You can see there are 5 tabs. The dashboard has this one very large markdown field, and you can write whatever you want. You can add links and you can add visualizations. This is where you kind of annotate your workspace. You make the description of whatever is in here. You can add different things like instructions, or you can add prices for like price estimates, cost estimates for running different workflows. And you'll find that information in the dashboards of a lot of our featured workspaces. Over here on the right, there are a few different cards with different types of information that's very useful. So there's workspace level information about the creation of this workspace and what access level I have to this workspace. In the cloud information card, there is information about the Google bucket that is associated with this workspace. So every time you create a workspace, it creates its own Google bucket, and that has its own unique address that you can copy very conveniently from here. And of course, you can check who the owners are. You can add tags, or you can search in the featured workspace list based on these tags. You can also modify notifications. So right now we have a feature for getting notified via email when you submit your workflows. Excuse me. So with that, I'm going to move on to the data page. And there's kind of the most information over here. So I'm going to try to do this not too quickly, but also not too slowly. So first of all, the data page is the way that your workspace organizes all of the metadata that points to the data in the cloud. So it's not that the data page is a storage location in itself. It's actually just a place that organizes things like metadata. It lists input files and points to output analyses files. It shows different types of sample information like phenotypic data, and it can have reference information also. So there's a way to basically link to both things like sample IDs, but also to actual files in other cloud locations. Like we can see here, we have different types of BAMs, all sorts of different read files, FASTQ files, and those coexist with all of the annotated information like the sample IDs and assembly lengths, and everything that you can imagine is all organized on these spreadsheets. And so these spreadsheets are called tables. This is kind of the most important part of the data tab, is these tables. So let's take a look at this table over here. It holds information for viral isolates that underwent whole genome sequencing. If we click on the sample table, it looks like a spreadsheet where each row represents a sample that we want to analyze, and we have several columns that hold information about the sample, including links to the sequencing files and analyses files that are located across different cloud repositories. That's an important distinction here. So when I click on one of these links, it will actually kind of indicate where this file lives. So it actually even gives you a very convenient terminal download command if you want. It comes right with the gsutil CP as part of it, and it shows you what the actual Google bucket location is for that particular file. You can also download it. Of course, that costs money. So with Terra, the things that cost money are uploading and downloading data, and launching computation. So you save a lot of money by not having to upload and download and re-upload data in different locations. You just have to point to it using using metadata like this. So in other words, the tables link to the files where they exist, and you don't necessarily need to move them. And this is one of the kind of more important things for us to impress on people about how Terra works, that all of these files not only live in the cloud, but they can live in lots of different locations. And in some cases, you may have to have special authorization. You may need to authenticate yourself in order to have proper access to those locations, but you don't need to move the files around. If you have logged in properly in both Terra and like on the NIH side, then you will be able to do this.
So that's just like a ln-s in Bash.
I'm sorry?
Is that like a ln-s in Linux? Just copy a link of the file.
Essentially. I think so, if I understand what you're saying correctly.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so by using tables, you can keep track of all the data related to the sample in one place.
Can I ask you one question, Anton, just about the sample tab? My understanding is that in these data tables, you can't have more than one group of samples. Otherwise, it needs to be a separate workspace. Is that right? Like if I had a group of my own samples and then a group of TCGA samples, and I didn't want them in the same table because I like.
If you don't want them in the same table, you can create separate tables. And
Each with a group of samples in it.
Unless I
Yeah,
misunderstood.
like you could call them sample 1, sample 2. You don't have to name them sample. You could name them, you could have different sample tables with the same.
I didn't know that. Okay.
It's kind of new. Well, new-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. So the data that goes into these tables, do they have to have certain format, or are they free format?
So this on the back end, this table is just a CSV. So I can, and that's actually part of the demonstration later on, is I can download this entire table and open it in a spreadsheet editor. And all of these are, I can modify them however I want. Once they are imported in here, they do have data types, which can I see that while I don't know if I can see that while I'm in a read-only workspace, but once we're in a cloned version, and I show you how to add different data fields, you'll see that you can add a data field that should be a string or a Boolean. Does that answer your question?
So in a way, it's more like freely structured, right?
Yes, it's pretty flexibly structured.
And is there a possibility of joining 2 tables into one?
Joining 2 tables into one. I think in order to join 2 tables into one, you would have to just create a spreadsheet from scratch and just kind of copy paste them together and then upload it. It's not too difficult. I don't think that there's a simple way within the interface to take 2 tables and merge them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
But it isn't difficult to do it by just downloading the TSV, adding whatever data you want to it and re-uploading it.
Hi, Anton. I have one quick question. Do you think we can access geodata into Terra?
Geodata.
Yeah, that's gene expression omnibus.
Would one of the TAs be able to answer that question? I'm actually not sure.
Yeah.
I can answer that. So right now, Terra just links up to Google Buckets. So if you have and Azure is coming to Azure Storage is in preview mode. If data is not stored in a Google bucket, you're going to have to put it in a Google bucket to use Terra. I believe the workspace that Anton is showing right now actually might have a workflow to pull geodata. So you can see an example of how you can use a workflow to pull it. But no, you can't access it directly. You're still going, if you want to actually work with the data in the cloud, you're still going to need to move the data from Geo to a cloud repository.
So that means it costs money, right? Because I'm uploading the data.
If you personally are doing it and it's not already stored in another cloud repository, then yes, you would need to, it would cost you money to store in your own, say, workspace bucket, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Fabulous. So I'm just gonna keep moving on, but feel free to keep jumping with questions. Although maybe for the sake of time, unless you really want me to slow down on something specific that I just showed, you can post your questions in the chat. Okay, so tables can be named whatever you want when you create new tables, and they can have as many rows and columns as you want. And as I said, on the back end, these tables are just TSV files. So I can select, all of them or some subsection of them, and I can click export and hit download as TSV. And then I can go ahead and open this Excel. And you can see that I see basically the exact same thing. The one thing that I want to draw everyone's attention to, that's fairly important if you end up playing around with tables like this, is this top left cell has to be
Anton, I think we only see your Chrome window.
Oh, this is my Chrome window. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. One moment. Let me fix that. So here, everyone can see my Excel sheet.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I just want to point out this top left cell. It has this very specific format. It has the word entity followed by a colon, followed by the name of the table with an underscore ID, right? So I could rename this to be, something else like puppies, and I can then, I can then re-upload it to my workspace. Obviously, I can't upload it to this workspace because I'm only a reader on this workspace, and it would show up in my list of tables with whatever it was before the underscore ID. And so that's to answer one of the questions that someone just asked about how to combine different tables. To my mind, the easiest way would be to just download both tables and copy paste them together and re-upload them. So, an extra 30 seconds of work. There's not a pretty way of doing it. But yeah, that's the way to do it. So that's how data tables work. There are three dedicated sections for three different kinds of data that Terra helps you with. So there's the table section that sets up spreadsheet-like tables of data for storing all of your metadata, and it's most often used to hold sample information and primary input data, things like that. There is reference data. And reference data allows you to select from a pre-existing column for common genomic references like HG38, for example. I'm so sorry. And when you select a reference, the table will hold files like FASTA files, index files, etc. There is also this other data section that has both workspace data that can be used to hold information that you might want to use on all of your samples or a set of your samples. So things like additional reference files aside from the commonly available ones that you can look up by clicking add a reference. You can add different types of descriptions. You can have different types of external spreadsheets that you might need for other things. So that's what workspace data is for. And then there is this files tab. And that actually is your access into your Google bucket. So as I mentioned, every time you create a workspace, you also create a persistent storage for that workspace. And we call that the workspace Google bucket. And you can access that either through the dashboard, over here. You can just open the bucket in your browser. Or you can also browse around in those files by going to the data tab and going to this files section. So for example, these are all output folders of workflows. And then this workspace also happens to have a folder for reference files, and it also has a set of notebooks inside of it. Okay. That takes us to the analyses tab. And this is where we'll be doing most of our hands-on today. So we're going to be launching a Jupyter notebook, not this one, because we're actually going to go to a different workspace in order to do our hands-on demonstration. In the analyses tab, when you want to launch a interactive analysis environment, you can do it by either clicking on, if there's a notebook file, you can click directly on the notebook file, and from within the notebook file, there will be an, open a cloud environment option, or you can also use this menu bar over here on the right. And you may have noticed, but that menu bar is visible in your workspace regardless of what tab you're in. So if I want to launch an interactive application, I have three options. Again, I can't do it in this workspace because it's read-only. But we have three different interactive applications that are available. We have a Jupyter application. We have Jupyter Notebooks, as opposed to Jupyter Labs, which is actually what will be available on the Azure Terra. We also have our Studio, and we have Galaxy. Today's hands-on demonstration isn't about either our Studio or Galaxy, but there are links to quick start materials about both our Studio and Galaxy in the slides that I'll present shortly. And basically the way that you launch this one of these applications is you'll click on settings, and we'll do all of this when we actually start it shortly. In fact, we're going to start that right before I start the next slideshow, because it takes a little bit of time for the environment to start up, and I want everybody's environment to be ready and running when we finish kind of doing the introductory talk about cloud environments. So when we do that, we're going to click on that button. We're going to click on settings. We're going to click create, and then we'll come back later and take a look at what the actual custom environment options are. But there's actually a lot of customization options. We won't need the customization options for today's demonstration, but they are available to you. The workflows tab is where you can find and configure workflows written in workflow description language, which we lovingly call WDL. And those analyze your data. So if we select one of these workflows, we can configure all of the input data. So this is where you would configure your input data. You can select data either directly from the data tab, or you can actually set that to be pointed at different Google buckets. And that's going to be something that we'll demonstrate in more depth tomorrow. So from the configuration page, we can see also a few different tabs. If you click on the script tab, you can see the WDL script itself for any one of these workflows. You can select exactly which version you want, and so this script may change depending on what version of the workflow you want to work with. You can see exactly what inputs you've selected. You can see exactly what outputs you've selected, like where you'll be writing those to. So you can either be writing them back to your table, or you can hardwire them to some Google bucket if you prefer. And the last thing that we'll show you on this platform tour is the job history tab. So the job history tab is where you can see your job history, the status of the various workflows that you've run. So the job history tab is specifically about workflows, not about interactive analysis. And you can see information here about the number of workflows that were actually associated with each submission. You can see the status. So, you know, they might be in a queued state or a running state, or they might be in a failed state. And from here, you can also click on any one of those jobs in particular, and you'll be taken to what we call the job manager page. And so you can see more details about that job, and you can also look into like the execution directory, where you can find more specific information about the timings for that job. This is particularly useful for troubleshooting. Like if you have a job failure, then you would go into that job and you would look through these links to find things like error messages or timing diagrams. And if that all sounds very daunting, the reason that's helpful is because we have a great support staff. And when you want to say why, when you want to find out why a certain workflow failed, you can just post on the forum, and they will most likely ask you, oh, could you look up what the error message was or what the timing diagram said, and we will tell you what went wrong.
Excuse me, Anton, can I jump in
Yes.
with a question?
Yep.
So where is your job history information stored? Is that something configurable that's stored on a Google bucket somewhere?
So
if that makes any sense.
It's in BigQuery. You
Yeah.
can query it directly, or yeah, but Terra queries BigQuery basically. But all the job history information comes from there.
Okay, so that's basically endless too, right? You could search for jobs you did 5 years ago, I would imagine.
Except that it gets archived after, I want to say, a year there, but it still exists, but it's archived. You have to go through a little bit more steps to get to it. There's an article about that. I can put it in the chat in just a sec. I'll find it.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. All right. Oh, moment. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to go and find a workspace really quickly, and we're going to clone our own workspace, and we're going to launch our cloud environment so that we can do a hands-on activity. And while our cloud environment is spinning up, we're actually going to do another little bit of introductory slide so that everybody can get the lay of the land of what's possible in interactive analysis. So I'm going to go back to the landing page. It takes a little bit of time sometimes. I just click on this banner up here, and it takes me all the way back. Or actually, for the sake of everyone's convenience, we're going to use the link that the TAs should be able to provide into the chat now for the Terra Quick Start workspace. So if one of the TAs could please put the link to the Quick Start workspace that we'll be working with. I'm going to slow down just a tad here so that everybody can follow along, because this is the important part. So here we are again in a publicly facing workspace. It's called T101 _ quick start, and it lives on the help-Terra billing project. And we are going to clone our own workspace. And you're going to notice several things change. You're going to notice this title card up here change. You're going to notice that you're the new owner of the workspace, and you're also going to notice, I mean, if you want to notice, that this bucket name is going to change because every bucket is unique. I'm going to click on this 3-dot button up here in the top right of the workspace. I'm going to click clone. I'm going to give it some sort of very unique name for myself. It's important that the names be unique on a given billing project. And now I'm going to select the billing project that we have for today. I'm just going to leave my screen up like this for a minute so that everybody can get to this point. So don't everybody name your workspace the same thing if you're all going to be using the T101 billing project, because they can't double up like that. And then you don't have to change any of these other things. So as soon as you do this, go ahead and click clone workspace. I'll wait for a moment. You may encounter an error when you first do that, but don't worry, after a couple of minutes, you should be able to refresh and see your own cloned workspace.
Sorry, how do I get to this T101 workspace to start with?
There, so the link is in the chat, in the Zoom chat. Emily posted it just a minute ago.
And how do you get to the pop-up box?
You get to the pop-up box by
Yes, I know it now. Thank you.
by clicking this button in the top right. And then you want to click the clone option.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I got a message saying error, loading storage cost data.
Yes, I believe, is Sam on the line? Is Samantha?
Yes, so
That's the error that we're expecting. That should not be a problem after a minute or so.
yeah, there are delays on the Google side for like propagating their permission. So you can just wait a few minutes and then refresh, and then the error should go away.
So yeah, once again, you don't have to change any of these other things. The bucket location can be the default bucket location, and you don't need to select an authorization domain. The authorization domains are the same as the groups that I showed at the beginning of the platform tour. So because we're not going to protect this workspace behind an authorization domain, you just don't need to worry about it. It's basically like a lab access badge that you can add to any workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and click clone workspace, and hopefully everyone is with me. I see a raised hand. Lynn, do you want to ask your question?
I was just going to say I'm done. I think we're supposed to do that when we're done, right? You asked us when we complete a task to raise our hand, so you can know.
That's right. I did. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I do have a question, Anton. When I do the billing drop down, I don't see any of the class ones, but I am associated with one for my team. Should I just choose that instead?
You don't see, I'm sorry, did you sign up for the free billing project and you don't see that one, or you're just asking about like other ones that you expected to see?
Yeah, I don't see the class one. There's no T101, Jan, whatever, or any of those options. I only see the one associated with my tools team. But I did fill out the form at the beginning of the class.
Me in a message, your email, and I'll put you on. Your user ID. Some of the user IDs didn't work.
So make sure that you're submitting the exact same email address that you used to register for Terra.
Okay.
Anton, can you show them where to find that on the profile page, or
where do you want me to put that in the chat here, or
send it to me? direct message. I'm Ally Cliff, TA,
On Slack?
in Zoom.
And this is
Oh,
great.
okay.
If you aren't sure, if you don't remember what, what you used to register, because you just kind of click through, you can click on your name and click on profile.
And it's the email under email, right? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, Anton,
Yes.
when I click clone workspace, it says that it already exists. So I
Gotta
might
make
have,
it different. You just, it's, so someone else you gotta add something to the name.
Yeah, it said it to me and I was surprised. And then I was like, wait, no, I didn't for sure. And then I realized probably because someone else here has my initials.
Yep.
okay, gotcha.
So just, put your favorite color or.
Got it. Thank you.
So yeah, it has to be unique for the billing project. So that's the one little pitfall of having a training for 150 people, as people are bound to have the same initials. And if you just say, make a copy, put your initials, and people are still going to bump into each other. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to move on at this stage.
I'm trying to get everyone on, but if you're not, they're coming fast and furious. So
I'm going to start. I'm going to say it over and over for people who still need to, just so we can all get up there as far as fast as possible, because I see lots of people have their hands raised. So some people are ready. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to launch a custom cloud environment, or rather, I'm going to launch a default custom cloud environment by clicking on this environment configuration button. As I said, regardless of where in the workspace you are, this banner stays right here. So you can launch that whenever you're in a workspace. It will bill that computation. So launching a cloud environment is one of those things that costs money. And the reason that you can do it from anywhere within a workspace is because this workspace is now associated with this billing project. So you'll notice that the read-only banner over here disappeared after you cloned your workspace. The title of the workspace changed to whatever title you gave it, and the billing project changed to the billing project that you selected. And now when I do things like upload or download, or launch workflows or interactive analyses, that will be billed to that billing project. So I'm going to click on that cloud environment configuration. I'm going to click the settings under the Jupyter card, and I'm just going to click create. And that's what I want everybody here to do. And we'll come back in about 15 minutes and take a closer look at the customization options. Actually, the customization options themselves are covered in the slides that I'm about to show you. So once you do that, you'll see both when you hover over the, now you have a little Jupyter icon here. When you hover over it, you see that it's now in the status creating. If I click on it, it says creating over here. If I were to try and launch a notebook right now, it would tell me that I still have to wait. And what we are going to do at the end of today's demonstration is we're going to launch this analyze data from table. And you can see right now that it's saying creating cloud environment. So you're going to have to navigate away for 3 to 5 minutes. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to navigate away for a little more than 3 to 5 minutes. And then we'll come back and we will go ahead and open this in an interactive analysis. So actually, let me wait just for a second. And if people could please raise their hands when they have successfully launched their cloud environment, because we don't want to come back to our cloud environments and people are like, wait, how was I supposed to raise, or how was I supposed to launch the cloud environment? Okay, I see a good 30 hands raised so far. So feel free to pipe up if you're not understanding how to do it. I'll just.
Hello,
Yes.
I'm not sure if I copy the correct directory. Because when I open that, there is no script or analysis or data. There, nothing in dashboard.
So you're not in the, you have an empty dashboard?
Yes.
Yes, it seems like maybe you did not clone the correct workspace. If one of the TAs could please post the link to the Quick Start workspace one more time in the chat. And so if you were trying to follow along and you haven't successfully yet launched your Jupyter environment, you do that by clicking over here on the environment configurations. You click on settings. And right now now it shows me the customization pane because I've already selected to create the default pane. But if you have not yet done so, once you click on settings, it will give you the option to just create a default environment. So go ahead and do that. Okay, I'm going to assume that we can move on, hopefully. So I'm going to try and go through our introductory slides to cloud environments and interactive analyses on Terra with some speed so that we can get back to the hands-on demonstration with enough time left over for some Q&A. Basically, in this session, we'll talk about notebooks, which is one of several modes of computation of analysis that are available on Terra. I know from some of your messages that there is interest in RStudio. As I mentioned, later in this slide deck, you can go ahead and fast forward if you want. In the public materials, there are links to quick start materials for both RStudio and Galaxy. And so if you really prefer to launch an RStudio instance, please feel free to do that and play around with it. And you can ask questions about that during the Q&A time. So what can you do in interactive analysis on Terra? You can explore, visualize, and analyze. You want to be able to both inspect and visualize and apply algorithms to data interactively, right? You want to be able to go back and forth with your data and look at what the results say, and then go back into your tools and make modifications and re-render your analyses. And Terra makes that exceedingly simple to do. So Terra features customizable cloud environments for popular applications like Jupyter and RStudio and Galaxy, packages like Bioconductor and Hail. You will show you how to select pre-configured virtual machines or customize your own. And you can basically use the application as if it were on a regular workstation. In fact, there's even an access into a terminal view into your virtual machine when you use interactive analyses. You can install additional packages if you need. You can access cloud-hosted data and do work and save data to persistent storage. One important takeaway from this presentation is that your interactive analyses instances come with their own persistent storage that is separate from the workspace storage. So there is both a workspace bucket and a persistent disk that is separate from the workspace bucket. And we'll show you where you can see a list of your persistent disks as well. And we also support GPUs, which is really cool. So we'll show you where in the customization pane you can select GPUs. So we actually already looked into where we do this on a workspace. So I just want to show everybody what it's going to look when we come back to it. So this is what the application configuration looks like. The software and dependencies that are pre-installed on the cloud environment are all listed for you in the application configuration pane, which is this one over here. So basically, your cloud environment comes with 3 different components. It comes with the software, which is the application configuration. It comes with the computational power, which is a highly customizable virtual machine. You can select different numbers of CPUs. You can select different quantities of memories, and you can actually even select different types of compute. So there are standard virtual machines, there are Spark clusters, and there's also now, not pictured in this slide, there's actually a checkbox for adding GPUs. And the third component is your persistent storage. So there is a detachable, persistent disk that is associated with your interactive analysis environment. And we say it's detachable because you can delete your cloud environment, but not delete the files that you generated with that interactive environment, because they all live on a separate persistent storage disk. And then you can reattach that persistent storage to a new cloud environment if you so choose. So how do cloud environments work? How do they fit into the Terra architecture? Well, they live on the Google project, and so they're associated with specific workspaces. And basically, the cloud environment will be associated with the workspace where it was created, and that's associated with the Google project. I don't think we need to go too much into the detail here, but if you have any questions about this infrastructure, please feel free to ask them during the Q&A. In case you're not familiar with what a Jupyter notebook is, and I actually kind of assume that everyone here is, so very quickly, a Jupyter notebook is it's a free open source interactive web tool. It allows you to do live coding and equations, and it has rich visualization options. It has rich narrative text options, and it's very conveniently shareable and reproducible, because you can just download the entire notebook as a file and share it with someone else. And assuming that they are able to launch the notebook on a comparable computational environment, which in Terra they can, then they will be able to see the exact same results. So at this stage, we can maybe go back and see if your cloud environment is running. I'm assuming mine is. There, you can see it says running right there. So in a second, we're going to launch our notebook. Really quickly, I want to show everyone, now that we've created a cloud environment, you will actually be able to see that cloud environment by going to the cloud environments list under your, sorry, not under your profile, but if you click on your name, several options down from your profile is your list of cloud environments. And when I look in here, it will show me, after a couple of seconds, it will show me this cloud environment that I've just created. Pay no attention to this old errored out one that I'm unable to delete, but it doesn't matter because I deleted it on the back end, so it's not costing any money. This should almost never happen to anyone, and if you see some kind of error like this, our support team will help you very quickly. But you can see that my cloud environment also has an associated persistent disk. So these two things are connected to each other, and I can delete one or both of them. So I can't delete this at the moment because my cloud environment is currently running, and you can actually also pause it from this location. So it's important to understand, I'm just going to click back. So by clicking back, I've gone right back to my own workspace. It's important to understand that you are being charged money for the running workspace. The workspace has a cost per hour when it is running, and it also has a different cost per hour when it is paused. So if you want to save money, you can pause the cloud environment, and you can do that either on the page that I just showed you, or you can do that right here. I can just click pause environment, and then that will take me down to the lower cost. Of course, I can also just delete the environment if I don't want to be incurring that charge at all. You can see up here an active cost estimate for whatever custom environment that I want. So this is our default cloud environment. You can see all of the settings are default. This is our default application configuration. We have the smallest amount of CPUs and memory. We have the smallest persistent disk. And if I were to change any one of these items, then the cost estimate up here would change. So for example, if I decide that I want to increase my disk size to 500 gigs, then that will cost me $20 a month to store. And if I wanted to actually change that, then I would click update. I'm not going to do that because the custom environment is exactly the one I want. So really quickly, here are all of the options that are available to you when you're customizing your cloud environment. You can pick from a variety of these application configurations. The default one comes with GATK, Python, and R, but also there are specific ones for bioconductor users and Hail users. There are also options for using some of the legacy environments in case you are trying to rerun analyses that are a little bit older and you want to, and you're trying to chase down reproducibility issues. So you can select some of these legacy environments. There are also community maintained environments, which are, very specific to certain applications. And also you can select custom environment. And if you're comfortable with using Docker, then you can actually create your own Docker. So all of these are based on Docker. So each one of these is basically its own Docker. And we've selected the default Docker for our environment. But if you want to build your own Docker, then you can go ahead and upload it to Docker Hub, and then just put your image name and tag right here, and you can launch your environment based on your own Docker. And of course, you can customize your cloud compute profile, and you'll see up here the prices change when I do that. So like if I want lots more CPUs, now it's going to cost me a lot more time, a lot more money to run those, although it costs the exact same amount when it's paused. If I want to, so same thing if I want to increase memory. On the other hand, if I want to do something like enable GPUs, why can't I enable GPUs? Is it because I have some? Does anybody know why I can't enable GPUs right now? Oh, I think you can't update a running cloud environment with GPUs. So in order to click this enable GPUs button, I have to be starting an environment from scratch. So I could delete this environment and go back into this customization pane, and then I'd be able to click this checkbox. And then it would give me all sorts of GPU options if you're interested in things like machine learning. Okay. Sorry?
Anton, can I jump in with a question?
Yes.
So the compute options that you're selecting there is Terra. So I guess my question, it's half IT and half billing. So am I using Terra/Broad's compute environment, or is there a way for me to use Terra but have it hook into my GCP environment if my organization has its own GCP account and environment?
I don't think so, but maybe one of the TAs can chime in with a more specific answer, like that you can create an identical environment within Terra.
Yeah, I think maybe Samantha's answered this question in a previous session that we've had, but I don't believe if you have a current Google VM that your team is sharing, you can't plug that VM into Terra.
Okay,
That's right.
we're in the right ballpark, but I mean more than a VM. I mean an entire environment, right? My organization has GCP accounts, so we can create VMs like at will and projects and whatever.
You can use your Google account for billing. That's fine. If you have an existing Google account, like you can set that, like you can set a Terra billing project under that account, but no, you can't replicate like the Google VM. Or sorry, replicate isn't the right word. You can't like use your VM from Terra.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. That you are answering my question. So the issue is kind of a security and IT issue, right? What you're telling me is that we wouldn't be hooking into our secure environment. We'd be using your secure environment.
That's correct. Yeah. And as Anton mentioned, it is a FISMA moderate FedRAMP authorized environment. So it does cover most.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, there is a very related question to that. What about the project itself? Since the billing object I have access to shows on the Google platform as well as on the Terra, if I created a GCP project on the Cloud Console, would I be able to access that on Terra as a workspace, or sort of put it inside a Terra workspace?
You cannot, Terra has to create the Google projects. You can't go the other way. You can't take an externally created Google project and assign it to Terra. Terra always creates the Google projects. They have to be Terra created.
Okay, and if I already created the Google project, there's no way to link that with the Terra afterwards? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. It's because our Google, like the Terra Google projects have other stuff behind the, like behind the curtain that kind of integrates with Terra.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so we don't have too much time left for our hands-on, so let's quickly get into that. Before we do that, I need to point out what kind of data we will be looking at. So this is a quick start workspace that we created with a kind of a toy example. And in this toy example, we have a different set of students, and we're going to be running some analyses to determine whether or not there is a correlation between those students' GPAs and their heights. So we have cumulative GPA stats for each one of these students. We have names for them. We have GPAs in different categories. We have their grades and we have their heights in centimeters. And so in today's demonstration, we're going to walk through this analyze data from the table notebook. Tomorrow's demonstration is going to show you how to generate the averages that are actually already pre-generated in this data. So we also have workflows based on the same kind of toy example where we calculate the student GPAs, and we'll show you how you do things like configure the workflows and how to send the outputs to different locations. But for today, those outputs are already all in place. And so we're actually doing the interactive analysis part first. So I'm going to click on this notebook. And first it opens this read-only preview. This is a convenient little thing to let you kind of scroll through whatever notebook you open before you actually open it, in case it's not the correct one. That is a little bit of a time-saving measure. We're going to click open. Really quickly, I want to point out that there's a playground mode. The playground mode and the open mode are essentially identical. Both of them open an interactive instance of a Jupyter notebook, but the regular mode is the one that has autosave. So every time you do something, every few seconds, it's going to be saving your progress. Playground mode is here for people who want to, for example, give writer access to someone else into their workspace so that multiple people can be in the same workspace. Those people can't necessarily create their own clones of workspaces, so they all need to be on one workspace, and they want to be able to open the same notebook, but they can't do that without overwriting each other unless only one of them opens it in what we call edit mode, and everybody else opens them in playground mode. So we're going to open it in the regular edit mode by clicking open. There we go. And now you can see I have a fully realized Jupyter notebook instance ready to play. I have this nice clickable active table of contents on the left, so I can actually click down to any one of these sections. You'll also see whenever you run through a notebook, whenever you run through a notebook, these will turn red while the notebook is trying to complete that particular task. So let me kind of quickly describe what everyone is seeing here. So first of all, right now we are running a Python 3 Jupyter notebook. You can tell that based on this indicator right over here, which is right next to our kernel activity indicator. So if I mouse over that, it tells me the kernel is idle because I am not currently running any cells or any computations. I can change the kernel type by going to this kernel menu. So I can click on this part of the menu, and I can change from Python 3 to R. So we have both R and Python enabled in our Jupyter. And in addition to both Python and R, we have Markdown enabled in every one of these notebooks. So if you're not familiar with notebooks or with Markdown in general, Markdown is a lightweight descriptive language, and you can tell the difference between a cell that is written in Markdown, both because it says right here that this cell is in Markdown, whereas if I scroll down to a cell that is a code cell, it will say here that it's code, but also they look very different, right? So this is kind of a rich text field, and it has its own Markdown format. If you're not familiar with Markdown, you can just Google Markdown format. It's quite simple. So when I double click on this, it turns it into the editable version, and I can do things like, change, like maybe I want that to be a different level header. And then if I hit run on this cell, then it will generate a new it will regenerate this cell. I'm going to change that back because we don't want it to look like that. There are multiple ways that you can run cells. The most popular way is the hotkey way, which is shift return. So I'm going to do that most of the time. I'm just going to hit shift return. There we go. I regenerated this cell. And so that's how you run cells. You can either click this run button, you can hit shift return, or you can click on this cell menu. You can run whatever cells are selected. You can run all of the cells below or above the one that you've selected, which can be very helpful. You can also run all of the cells all at once. In this menu, you can also clear outputs. So you can either clear the output of a current cell, or you can clear all of the outputs. So you'll notice if you scroll all the way down that the outputs are already generated, but for the purpose of this exercise, we're actually going to clear all of those. So let's just go down into the cell menu, scroll down to all outputs, and this I want everyone to go ahead and do. So please raise your hand when you do it. So once you go to all outputs, hit clear. All right, wonderful. So once we do that, we can start running through this notebook. And we won't go into all of this detail. You can feel free to read along with this on your own time. It's all very helpful information on what exactly is going on in this notebook. But at a high level, we'll start by loading in a bunch of packages that are necessary for this particular notebook. So I'm just going to hit Shift Return. You'll notice that this inside of these little brackets, at first it turned into an asterisk, and then it turned into the number 1. The asterisk indicates that the virtual machine is working, and the number 1 indicates that there has been 1 computation run since the last time the kernel was restarted. By the way, you can also restart the kernel using this menu or this button over here. This is the restart kernel button. So if your kernel gets stuck or if there's some kind of error going on, then a lot of times you can fix it by restarting the kernel. After that, we're going to set our environment variables. This is something that is kind of a best practice in Terra Jupyter notebooks. It's an easy way to set variables that are wired up to your workspace name and your workspace. So the workspace namespace is actually the billing project. And there are a lot of times in the code when you will need the billing project or the workspace name or the bucket location to be easily accessible. So we're going to go ahead and run that. And then the second part here just prints it out to show you that that indeed worked. So my Terra billing project, yep, it's the one that I used. The workspace name checks out, and this is the workspace bucket that matches the one that you would find if you went on the dashboard. And now we're going to load in data from our data table. So we're going to start that with this line right here. So we're going to use this FAPI function to this get entities TSV function in the FAPI package. And we're going to indicate that within this project, within this workspace, there is a table called student, which indeed there is, right? There's a table called student. And we're going to generate a TSV, or we're going to get the TSV, and we're going to store that in a data frame called student table. We're going to rename that top left column. No, so if you remember when I downloaded the TSV of the data table, that top left column was called entity student underscore ID. And just for the sake of convenience, we're going to use this rename function to change it from this big, long, weird syntax to just student again. And once we do that, we're going to print out the head, and there we go. We now see in our Jupyter notebook the very same information that we saw in our data tab. We're going to extract a subset of the students defined by the student set. We're going to take a look at that to make sure that it worked. And then we're going to run this defining plot functions. So that's just to define some of the plot functions that we'll be using. And now we can go ahead and plot our results. And so when we want to see a univariate distribution of the students' heights from the 8-student subset, then that's our distribution. And we can do the same thing for basically every single variation of the data. And this is the part where I'm going to send everyone into breakout rooms to basically do their own little exploration. So feel free at this point to basically do whatever you want. I like to take different, the different columns from here and visualize those in the box plot. So maybe instead of seeing what the distribution of their GPAs are, their cumulative GPAs, I want to see what their distributions are for specific GPAs. Maybe I want to go back into my data section and change which students are in the subset in case I'm curious about why we had this mysterious, unexpected correlation between height and cumulative GPA when we shouldn't have a correlation between height and cumulative GPA for this specific subset. And the toy story here is basically, this is an undersampled analysis. So when you expand to the entire cohort of students, now the correlation disappears as it should. And so with that, I'm going to open the floor up to questions for about a minute. And then for about 5 minutes, I'm going to send everyone into breakout rooms, and TAs will kind of be in and out asking if you have any questions. And then for the last 5 minutes, we'll all come back and have a Q&A. So does anyone have any immediate questions about how this works exactly before we go into breakout rooms? Otherwise, go ahead and hold your questions for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. On the, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is peculiar to me. I couldn't really observe how to launch that quick start link, how to get there to clone that workspace we did. And also in running the interactive analysis, the cell, I don't know how you place the cursor and click the space return to run the analysis. If you can briefly demonstrate that, I will be fine.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the second part of your question. If you still haven't successfully cloned this quick start, then maybe one more time the TAs can post the quick start link in the chat so that everybody has it, and you can feel free to play around on your own time within
the challenge is that how I tried to click on it to take me to the environment. It wasn't going. So I don't know.
So when you click on the link, it should take you first to the dashboard. Do you see this view when you do that?
No. Rather, I think it showed me. I think whether it's the cookie setting or something like that, that it was not giving me access to this environment.
Oh, I'm not exactly sure why that would be. Maybe you should connect with the support, with the frontline support team, so you can.
Have you cloned the workspace?
No. In fact, to come to this environment is still difficult for me. I can't come to this environment. It's not taking me to this environment when I click on the link.
I'm going to go ahead and send everybody into breakout rooms. If if one of the TAs can follow, I'm sorry, I can't see the name of who's speaking. But yeah, if one of the TAs can can directly message the person asking this question, then hopefully they can resolve that. So.
So just by my clicking on the link will take me to this environment. That's what it means?
It should, when you click on that link, it should take you to the public version of that workspace. And then you should be able to click on this 3-dot button in the top right corner. And then you'll have the clone option, and then you can clone your own version. Does that at least make sense? I'm sorry you're not seeing the right options. Okay, so I think everyone's back. And I just wanted to open the floor up to any other questions, and I or the TAs will do our best to help. I wanted to end with this slide, which is at the end of the cloud environments slide deck, which points you to a few other useful tutorial pieces for different types of interactive analysis experiences. Please feel free to shout your questions out or post them in the chat. Is there any plan to do a GATK on Terra tutorial workshop? Derek, would you like to cover that?
So we actually have registration open for a structural variant discovery pipeline in Terra workshop that's upcoming. It's on February 13th. If you give me a second, I will find the link. It's live and in person though. It's not. It's going to be in Boston. So if you're not there, you won't be able to attend unless you want to fly over. That's fine. So I'll see if I can get the registration page posted into the chat though. So look out for that. I'll give that to you in a second.
Thank you. Great question. Is Azure now available as the underlying cloud platform for Terra? Aside from the word "the," yes, it is one of the two underlying cloud platforms for Terra. If you want to sign up for Terra on Azure, then you should go to our support documentation. So you can go to support.terra.bio, and under the documentation section at the bottom, you'll see a section about Terra, or about Azure. Is the data on persistent storage visible on the associated Google bucket, or is it only inside Terra? So I think they're both visible through BigQuery. It's not associated with the Google bucket. Okay, so actually, there's one thing that I barely didn't have time to go into, which is to delete the environment. I know that we covered it, but I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen while I delete my environment so that everyone can see how it's done. And you should ideally always do that. Either pause or delete your cloud environment if you're not planning on using it. Moment. So hopefully everyone can see that I'm back in my copy of my quick start. And I'm actually going to do this through this section. So I'm going to go back to my cloud environments. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this cloud environment because I don't need it. And once the cloud environment is deleted, I will be also able to delete my persistent disk. I'm going to do that as well. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Just as a reminder, the slides are all available at broad.io here at this location. I'll post it one more time in the chat. So all of the slides and all of the materials are available at this location. The recording will also be made available on our documentation site. And we'll also send all of these materials out, including a link to the recording at the end of the workshop after tomorrow. All right, thanks very much, everyone. We'll hopefully catch everybody back here tomorrow.
Thank you, Anton, and all the TAs.
Yes, thank you, the TAs.
Yeah, thank you to Anton and all the TAs.
Yes.
Anton, one last question. Tomorrow we will use the same environment or we will create another one?
We won't be using interactive analyses environments tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be running workflows, but we can use the same workspace.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Farewell.
So if I'm able to log in and successfully clone that same environment, I can still follow tomorrow.
I'm sorry?
Okay, if much later, if I'm able to log into that environment and clone the workspace, can I still follow up tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. There should be no problem with that.
All right.
Okay, bye, everybody.